Well, this is going to be a little lengthy, but hopefully it'll be interesting. Are you going to record it?
Yeah.
Good.
Good, then you can send it to my mom.
All right, so the title of this is Of Doctors and Bishops, and then you'll know why here in a moment. Go ahead to the next slide. All right, so pretty much I think everybody here at one time or another, right, Jesse, has been to the hospital, right? Everyone has been to the doctors or the dentist. And how many of us, when we go there, have asked the doctor, I want to see your license. I want to see your credentials. Are you a real doctor? How many of us have asked to see his academic reports? How many? Nobody.
Nobody, yeah.
Next slide. Why? Think about that for a moment. Why have you never had to ask a doctor? Now, he may be stupid, he may be incompetent, but there's no doubt that he is a certified doctor. But why have we never had to ask a doctor about their credentials?
Because the authority and control made it where they had to be licensed to be there. Yeah.
And it's hung
Exactly.
up in the lobby.
Yeah. Well,
Well, a lot
But
of
it can be a
times.
forgery.
Yep. So next one. It's
It
exactly.
goes back to trust.
So, like Joe pointed out, there are structures in place that give us what is known as moral certitude. That's a very, very important term. Moral certitude that this guy is in fact a doctor. Now, you can never have absolute infallible certitude because some way, I'm sure there's some way that somebody could sneak in there, put on a white coat, and pretend to be a doctor and get away with it for a period of time. But by and large, you have moral certitude that this fella is a doctor. The system has been set up to virtually preclude the possibility that these people are there not licensed, or that they don't have the credentials needed to practice their trade. So as a result, we don't need to focus on whether or not he's a real doctor. We can focus instead on our health. We can focus on those things that we came there for. Next slide. So the doctor has two essential characteristics that allow him to ply his trade. The first one is the ability, the knowledge, the experience, the schooling, etc., to perform surgery, diagnose, treat illnesses, and essentially the healing arts, right? So the first one we really want to focus on is that word ability. Ability. And instead of ability, think of the word validity. All right, so what we're doing here is we're differentiating validity and laicity and jurisdiction. These are three key points that we all need to understand very clearly. So the ability corresponds to validity. In other words, he has the real ability to cut somebody open, do whatever he needs to do, and sew it back up. It's a valid surgery. The next one here is the permission to exercise those skills. So he's got his license, right? We don't need to worry about that. And very close to permission and kind of nestled under it is the jurisdiction. His license is good in the state of Kentucky because it's issued by the state. Other states may recognize it. But if he wants to practice in, say, New York, he would have to get typically a license in that state. So he can just run around and practice medicine anywhere in the world. It's juridically, there's jurisdictions where he can practice. So ability corresponds to validity. In other words, it really happened. Permission corresponds to laicity, the lawfulness of the act. Okay, you can practice without a license, and it would be a valid operation, a valid medical performance, but it would be unlawful, illicit. And that's where we get the term laicity. And finally, jurisdiction. He may have jurisdiction in one area, but not in another. Any questions so far on any of that? All right, I think we're on track here. Next one. So let's change things up a little bit. Next slide. Let's assume that this structure that is in place has undergone a major change. The hospital and the state enforcement agencies that govern it have all been infected with some strange disease. Let's call it a zombie outbreak. All right, the zombies are now in control of the hospital. They're in control of the police department. They're in control of everything, and everything is completely disrupted.
Disease X.
With the end result, yeah. So you can't go to the hospital without the severe danger, if not the moral certitude, that you would get infected. As a result, we cannot go to those hospitals anymore. Next slide. Simply, however, because the hospitals are under quarantine, that doesn't remove our need for doctors and medication, does it? We still need those things. We simply can't go to the official institutions to get them. So, with this new situation that we're in, with the zombie outbreak at the hospitals, we're now forced to seek medical help from illegal doctors, doctors who do not have a license. They may be very good doctors. They may not be. They may not even be doctors. But the reality is, in this current situation, if you want to get your child the medicine that they need, the surgery that they need, etc., you're going to have to go out and find somebody who has the healing arts and the ability to do medical practice. Now, the idea of expecting him to have a license is gone. All right, are everybody following so far? The end result of this, however, is that we no longer have the guarantee of these great institutions that these people are who they say they are. Next slide. So the scenario that we're looking at is your child needs some kind of life-saving operation. I don't know, tracheotomy, whatever it happens to be. And someone comes to your door, got the white coat, stethoscope, he's all set, looks the part. I'm a doctor. So you've got two choices. You can say, hey, come on in, doc, start operating. Or you can inquire and demand his credentials. Where did you come from? What's your medical history? In other words, where have you worked? How long have you been in practice? Who taught you?
Yeah, who trained you?
Who trained you?
Yep.
So, which would you do?
You better find out if he is who he
I say the
says he
second
is.
one now because now there's no
Yeah.
there's no great
The second one,
institution
because
behind him, so.
there's a few charlatans out there, right? There's people out there who are willing to, tell a little lie here and there to get whatever it is they're looking for. I'm not saying they're all like that. But the fact of the matter is, you now have to do your own homework. When it comes to these physicians, you are the buck stops here, basically, especially when it comes to the health of your child. Next slide. So we really need to focus, I think, a little bit on the validity and laicity side of things, the ability and permission. So in the above scenario, we're far more concerned about the doctor's ability, whether or not he's a real doctor, a valid doctor, before we let him operate on our child. Now, these skills that he has can be applied without permission. Right? It's a valid surgery. It's valid, but it is not licit. It's not legal. We covered that a few moments ago. I just wanted to drill this in because there has been questions in terms of what's the difference between validity and laicity. Any questions on that so far? All right, next slide. So putting it all together, we're not quite done yet. The institution of the Catholic Church has been overrun with zombies. I think we're all on board with that. Going to those hospitals is going to put our souls in mortal danger. As a result, we can't go there anymore. Their doctors, rather than curing you, will probably eat your brains and your soul. However, we still need the spiritual medicine and the skills of the physician of souls to survive, and that obviously refers to the priesthood and the sacraments. We must, therefore, in our present situation, we didn't put ourselves in this situation, but it is what it is. We have to now rely on illegal physicians, illegal priests, illegal bishops, who don't have jurisdiction, who don't have licitness. So the third thing that we have to look for is validity, whether or not they are really who they say they are. And before we go on to the next slide, we just got to hang tight because help is on the way, and we don't have to solve the problem, we simply have to deal with it. Next slide. All right. So in our current situation with regard to valid priests and so forth, we have comparative safety in large organizations like the SSPX, for instance, okay? Because they have institutions, they have procedures in place that mimic much of what we have with the broader institution of the Catholic Church. All right, they're not going to just ordain anybody who shows up and says, "Ordain me." All right, there's a process that they have to go through. They make sure that they're properly baptized, make sure that they've been confirmed, they make sure that they've been educated, that they've got all the skills and so forth that they need to be priests. But when we get outside of those organizations, we don't have even that relative safety anymore. So now we have to be even more diligent to test the claims of anybody who says, "I am Father so-and-so, I am Bishop so-and-so." Next slide. And that's just common sense. Basic stuff. What is a sacrament? What is a sacrament? Catechism 101. A sacrament is an outward sign instituted by Christ to give grace. Now we have to focus a little bit on the outward sign part of it, because that's what we're going to be looking at, and the instituted by Christ. Those are the two things that we really have to just kind of lock in for a moment. Next slide. Each sacrament has three elements: matter, form, and intention. So the matter is those things, those tangible things that you can see and sense. Such as at Mass, it would be the wheat. Baptism, it's an easy one, it would be the water. The form are the words that the minister speaks. "I baptize you," "This is my body," etc. Those words and that matter, those are what was instituted by Christ. And therefore they are unchangeable. We don't have the power or the right to change them. And we'll go into a little bit of that in more detail shortly. And finally, the intention. All right. If you had somebody who was sleepwalking, a priest who goes up to the altar and he says, "This is my body," is that a valid sacrament?
Yes.
No, it is not, because he has not formed the intention. The minimum intention, according to the Council of Trent, is that they have to intend to do what the church does. It's a very low bar. They don't have to be sitting there thinking, "I really want this to become the body of Christ." It's simply a matter of, I intend to do what the church does, and that suffices. Any questions so far? Next slide. So breaking it down, the church is a visible society, right? Because it is composed of men. Men have bodies. Bodies and men, when you get into that kind of a situation where they're all grouped together, they have to have some kind of a governing structure. We all know that. The means to the end, namely salvation, were given to us by Christ to be governed, regulated, and distributed by that authority that he established. It is the church that governs the sacraments. It is the church that controls those sacraments. And this is one other point that we really need to kind of zero in on. No one, not even the Pope, not even all the bishops together with him, nobody and no number of people can substantially change those elements that Christ instituted when it comes to the sacraments. Christ instituted the sacraments, and he said, "This is the matter." In the case of baptism, it would be water. "This is the form." In the case of baptism, it would be, "I baptize you." Those things cannot be changed substantially. And what do I mean by that? You can have a valid baptism, or let's see if we can find a better example, something that would be, well, in the Eastern rites, for instance, the form would be, "You are baptized in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost." All right. In the West, it's, "I baptize you in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost." Substantially, it's the same. There's no real major difference. Some years ago, I think it was maybe 2 years ago, there was an issue where a priest out west somewhere, it was discovered that he was using the form, "We baptize you in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost." And he was doing this for almost 20 years.
He had 800 baptisms under his belt.
Yeah, 800 baptisms under his belt. Invalid. Invalid on his face. Why? Because "I" is not the same as "we." Two totally different concepts. So the meaning was not carried through. And this is not the only case. This happens quite a bit in the Novus Ordo. They play fast and loose with the form. And in some cases, even the matter. We've all heard of stories where in the new Mass, they'll use rice flour for their bread. Invalid. It's invalid because Christ said wheat. It has to be wheat bread. Whether leavened or unleavened, it doesn't matter. It has to be substantially the same thing. Next slide. So, one of the key points with regard to validity, whether or not a person is really a priest, really a doctor, really a bishop, is you have to have moral certitude. You cannot approach someone simply because they're probably a priest, probably a bishop. Because if there's a 90% chance that he's a bishop, there's a 10% chance he's not. And there's a 10%, if he falls within that 10%, no bishop. And if there's no bishop, there is no ordinations, there is no confirmation, there is no sacraments. It's simply a fella up there in a red cassock and a mitre. No different than you and me. This is from Denzinger. This was condemned by a decree of the Holy Office in 1679. And if you read it, it may be a little confusing. I put this down here just to kind of explain it a little bit. The decree says it is not licit.
It is not.
Yeah,
illicit.
it is. I can't really see.
It is not illicit in conferring sacraments to follow a probable opinion regarding the value of the sacrament, the safer opinion being abandoned unless the law forbids it, convention or the danger of incurring grave harm. Therefore, one should not make use of probable opinions only in conferring baptism, holy orders, or episcopal orders.
Yeah.
The way that they write, and then it's like that's condemned.
Yes.
So it's like the opposite.
So that's bolded right there. This idea that you can approach a sacrament, especially when it comes to baptism, which is essential for salvation, holy orders, and the Episcopal orders. You cannot go to those sacraments based on the idea that they're probably valid. This explanation down here, I wrote, the endorsement of the following, a probable opinion on the value or validity of a sacrament, forsaking the safer stance, is condemned unless restricted by law, convention, or the threat of serious harm. The passage cautions against depending solely on probable opinions in the administration of baptism, priestly or episcopal orders, emphasizing the obligation to adhere to the safer course. Obligation. Any questions so far?
And that's canon law. So
Yeah, that was condemned by the Holy Office. So that's
that's different.
yeah.
So,
but either way, it's
but
very
it is.
serious.
It's also in canon law in a different wording, in a different section.
I think in the old as well as the new, the 1917 and the 83.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next slide. So the sacrament of orders. So this comes from Pope Pius XII's Sacramentum Ordinis. This is a document he put out in 1947 that clarified certain ambiguities with regard to what is the matter and what is the form for some of the sacraments, particularly when it comes to the sacrament of orders. Because prior to that, there was debate among theologians. What words were the matter, and what was the form, what was the matter required to actually make somebody a priest or a deacon or a bishop? And there was this discussion between theologians. They couldn't quite figure it out. They went to Rome, and Pius XII settled the matter. When I read the document, it's pretty clear he's exercising his supreme authority. So I would say it would be infallible. This is Pius XII. He says, finally, in the episcopal ordination or consecration, the matter, remember what we talked about, matter, is the laying or the imposition of the hands by the bishop. The bishop puts his hands on the head of the ordinate. That's required. Without that, there is no valid matter. No sacrament. It doesn't happen. The second one is the form. The form consists of the words of the preface. Now, we all know what the preface is during the Mass. It's the same thing, except this particular preface is quite long. The last section of it, there's 16 words. And here it has it in Latin, which we'll go through that here in a moment. I'm not going to bother trying to read it. But this is Sacramentum Ordinis, Pius XII, 1947. Official stuff. Next slide. The main event. This isn't a video. Yes, it is a video. So before you click on the video, what this is this is the video. Now this is from Boston's official channel, the 469 Fitter. So it's not like this came from any other website, didn't come from any other YouTube channel. This is their official documentary evidence that Bishop Pfeiffer was actually consecrated a bishop. So I mention that because they put this up back in 2020, and it's still up. And this video, if they didn't put this up, 90% of their problems would probably go away. Because in this video, there is clear evidence of positive doubts with regard to the form. All right, remember how I talked about with regard to the form of the sacraments, you can't change substantially the meaning of the words. So go ahead and press play. I don't know if the sound's going to come through.
That's the reason I did.
Well, just this is the
Veni creator spiritus.
I'll go ahead and pause that. All right.
He put his hands over top of it.
Well, that was at the beginning of the preface.
Oh, I didn't
He
see
did put his hands at the beginning of the preface.
All right.
So that's one thing that is definitely there. So just go to the next slide there. All right, so this is going to be a little bit more helpful because this is from Novus Ordo Watch. This is a video that they put together. Of course, they're going after Webster because he's a Feeneyite, which is neither here nor there.
The other thing is Bishop Webster was also, didn't he consider a state of a contest?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like when this came out, you had a lot of eyeballs that were like, whoa, Father Pfeiffer finally got consecrated. So you had state of a contest watching it. You had, I'm sure, some Pius X people, like especially when they posted the video, everyone's like, okay, well, let's go watch it. You know, especially clerics, because they want to watch the ceremony and continue. I don't want to steal you.
Oh no, that's fine. So Novus Ordo Watch put this together, and what they do is we all heard sounds and noises, but it's not necessarily clear what was said. Well, this helps in terms of what Bishop Webster actually said, and we'll compare that in a moment with what the words should be. So go ahead and press play. Can everyone see?
Sanctificat.
was doing good until the last point.
I really did not understand.
Well,
Yeah, like
let's go to the next slide.
Yeah.
Until the last point, where he was
David, you can tell us what he missed.
Yes, we're going to go through that in detail here.
Isn't he supposed to be a bishop
All right.
who's read Latin his entire life?
Well, that's if you watch that entire ceremony, it's clear that Bishop Webster, he's 76 years old. He's got medical issues. I understand all that, but he does struggle with the Latin.
Yeah.
He does struggle with it.
And who knows if has he ever consecrated anybody else? Like, it's a very complicated ceremony. I don't even know if he's done it before. That was probably only his second time ever, if he's ever did it. So,
So
I
if
can't blame him on
Say the
that.
Latin word correctly, or pronounce it correctly, or it doesn't come out right, then it's not valid either.
So there are nuances to that, and we'll get into that in a little bit more detail. If the root word is the same, and the ending changes, like patrus as opposed to patria, then it would be considered valid.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
What we're looking for is a change in the root word, that first part of the word. If that changes to something different and does not carry the same meaning,
Yeah.
invalid. Just like we baptize you in the name of the Father, right? That one word, we, it does not mean the same as I.
Yeah.
So this breaks it down in quite a bit more detail. This is the Latin, all right? And for our purposes here, we're going to kind of focus on the English side of things. So the 16 words in Latin, if you translate it to English, it says, complete in your priest the fullness of the ministry. Key word, ministry. And adorned with the ornaments of total glorification, sanctified with the dew of heavenly ointment. Those are the 16 words that Pius XII, rendered into English, says are required for validity in terms of the sacrament. And we can compare the Latin, all right, complete in sacerdote tuo. So far, so good.
Yeah.
Then, typically in the Roman Pontifical, if it's more than one, it'll have in brackets, and then it'll say, sacerdotibus tuis, plural. Just like priests. All right. He said that, no big deal. That doesn't invalidate things, because it still carries the meaning. Then we get to mysterii. Mystery.
Where's it at?
Right here. Right where I'm pointing
see
to.
that one.
Mystery. If you look up here, ministeri. He says mystery twice.
Well, you know your Latin, right? Yeah.
But he says, and I've listened to it, dozens of other people have listened to it, and everybody says mystery. That's what he's saying. That's what we hear. Bishop Pfeiffer says, no, he said ministry. I mean, I don't hear ministry. I hear mystery.
Well, it's recorded. We just heard that.
Well, it is recorded, but Bishop Pfeiffer will set us straight here on that in a few moments.
Okay.
Another word is sanam, or sanum. And then up here, it's sumam. This is the correct one. Sumam, sanam. The root word is changed. The root word is different. This means health.
Huh. Wow.
Now, I took this, which is what Bishop Webster said, and ran it through ChatGPT. And Brian, you can verify the translation. This is what it came out with. Complete in your priests, this mystery of your mystery. Healthy in you and adorned with the ornaments of total glorification. Behold, sanctified by dripping with heavenly ointment. Quite a bit different than what's here.
Yeah.
That key word mystery as opposed to ministry, because that's what you're asking for. You're asking for God to raise this priest to the summit of the ministry, the top of the ministry.
Yeah.
If that word isn't there, the meaning is not carried through.
Yeah, the fullness of your ministry, and he said mystery of your mystery.
Yes.
That's like completely different.
Now, Bishop Pfeiffer says he said ministry. Everybody else says he says mystery. We have a conflict here.
Yeah.
Which one's right?
He said she.
But there's
He
no
said,
problem.
he
What-
said.
He said, she said.
Yeah.
Right?
You don't
Yeah, but-
rely
but-
on probables.
But if you have a recording, what'd you say? Say that?
You don't rely on probables.
Right.
Okay.
He probably said it or he probably
Yeah.
didn't.
And
But-
it was within
You
a couple
allow
of days
that.
after this came out that multiple people, like say the Conscious Novus Ordo Watch, some Pius X people who don't agree at all and don't have any affiliation with Father Pfeiffer, and they're like, there's a problem. That was off.
Yeah.
They were all inclusive, it sounds like.
Big problem.
They were all in agreement.
Yeah.
In error.
Right. They said that was a problem. Not that it was like evil or, you know.
He's 76 years
It
old.
was just,
He makes mistakes.
It was a mistake. That was wrong. They got to fix it. That was basically it.
But this
Like
video,
He just repeated himself on Mysterium. Looks like he repeated himself when he said it. That's why it's there twice.
yeah, but I mean, even repeating yourself, that's not going to change
No, yeah.
the validity of it because the meaning is still brought through.
Yeah.
You know.
And he
But-
clearly struggled at the end. with
Yes.
that last clause.
Well, Father Poisson had to
Had
had to
somebody
help
show
him,
him where he was at. Yeah, he lost his place, I guess.
which even that wouldn't invalidate it, right? I mean, that wouldn't change the nature of what he was saying. You know, there was like an awkward pause, obviously. But this is what it translates. What he said actually translates to. So where's Rick? Here's your funny part. Next one. When I initially put this into ChatGPT, this is what I got. It says, the provided text appears to be a sequence of Latin words that, when translated individually, do not form a coherent and meaningful sentence. It seems to be a combination of Latin-sounding phrases without grammatical structure or clear context.
Wow.
If there's a specific intended meaning or context you have in mind, please provide additional information or clarification for a more accurate translation.
Is that AI?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So see, AI could see it.
So, and I only put this in here because obviously that's not the final word on the matter. But the point is, even the darn computer had trouble figuring out what he was trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why I have a ID10T
It's
error
almost
up
like
here.
he's saying it's a little fickle, but it don't make sense.
So, but this is objective, and my point is with that video that they put up, they have introduced what is known as a positive doubt.
Yes.
A positive doubt, something that you can point to that says, whoa, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So there's two types of doubts. One of them is a negative doubt, and that would go like, oh gosh, you know, Father Bitzer's up there at the altar, and I don't hear him say, "This is my body." Did he really say that? You know, unless I actually hear it, I can't trust it. That's a negative doubt, and typically that is the stuff of scruples. That's not something that we're really permitted to dabble in. But when it comes to positive doubts, Father gets up there and, you know, when he baptizes a child, he goofs up the form to the point where it no longer carries the meaning. Okay, that's a positive doubt because he did something that I can point to and say that is wrong. All right. So, any questions so far?
Do you mind if I insert something here?
Yeah.
Father Bitzer's actually told me it is so important that he follows the rubrics exactly in praying the Mass. Because if he gets it wrong, he's got to go back. You know, he's got to correct it.
Yes.
So.
No, and that is an admirable trait, and that should be a trait that is there in all priests. But sadly, it's not.
And that's why
That's why he
had
doesn't
he
want
repeated-
the choir so loud, because he wants to be able to hear what he's praying, so he can validate the fact that he's.
Right.
So that's why he asked the choir to quiet
Tone it down a little bit?
That's right.
And that's why if the or Bishop Webster had repeated it even multiple times to get it right, it
That's
still would have
right.
been valid because
Right.
there's nothing wrong with repeating it if you make a mistake.
That's right.
Yes, and that's
Well,
exactly
that's
what it should have.
I
Yes.
mean, it's just called a do-over.
Right.
What's that called in Irish thing?
Mulligan.
A mulligan. That's right. I had to tell the Irish guy there.
Well, let's see what the next slide is here real quick. All right. You wanted to make a comment, I think, about them redoing it the next day.
Yeah, so if you guys know, so when all the controversy came out a couple of days after all this, I mean, Novus Ordo Watch posted an article, maybe not that video, but I mean, they pointed it out like the next day they had an article up on their site. If there's another gentleman that's online, his name's Sean Johnson, if you've heard of him. He goes by his name, whatever, on any kind of sites he's on. He was a former Pius X seminarian, and he's really good, close friends with Bishop Williamson, and emails him a lot. And so he knows Bishop Webster from, I don't know, he knows him maybe from seminary or something. So everybody's debating all this, and so he said, all right, well, I'm going to reach out to Father Webster and ask him if they redid it. And so he called Bishop Webster and said,
Wow.
Your Excellency, everyone says that there was a problem. Did you guys, then we're hearing from Father Pfeiffer that it was redone. Although, he said, was it redone? And Bishop Webster said it was. The next day they redid it. But it wasn't videotaped.
Mm.
And because they had to drive Bishop Webster home back to Tennessee, I think that's where he's from. It wasn't videotaped. I don't know, who was there, how many people. There's no proof that it was, did he say it correctly the second time? I don't know. So that's problematic.
Yes,
Exactly.
That's that 10%.
Exactly, because that doubt is still there. They didn't clear it. They didn't clear it.
Right.
Well, this next video is...
Even if they did it out of good intentions, it's the facts are the facts.
So this next video, go ahead and do the next, don't click on it yet. So this is, you can go back to the next one, but just don't click on the video yet.
Okay.
So this is a video that Father Pfeiffer put out, I think 2 or 3 days after the consecrations, in which, like Thomas pointed out, he explains that they redid it the next day. But I want you to pay particular attention to his characterization of what you just saw. His characterization of what happened with that initial consecration. How he minimizes certain things in terms of concerns, brushes over them, ignores them, and then characterizes what happened that day. Then he will talk about what they did the day after. So go ahead and press play.
And when they attack us on every side, like for instance in our present situation here, being consecrated a bishop only a few days ago, now they're trying to spread throughout the internet as much as possible. There's no bishop, no bishop, no bishop, no bishop. So that Bishop Pfeiffer was not actually consecrated validly a bishop, because when Bishop Webster said the words that that they didn't sound right on the recording, and that maybe the words weren't right, and there might have been a mistake in a couple of the words during the time of the key words of the valid form, and therefore he's not a bishop. Bishop Webster unsuccessfully attempts to consecrate Father Pfeiffer to the episcopacy and try to create confusion and spread it throughout the world. But what did St. Paul himself say after he became St. Paul? He said, be slow to wrath, slow to wicked judgment, and quick to doing good things, but slow to wrath. Because Saul himself, when he was younger, he was very fast to wrath, and it caused him great trouble. And when you take the recording of the consecration of a few days ago, it is very clear. We had an actual recording, because there's a recording coming from the lapel mic of the bishop that was made, as well as a regular recording which is coming from with all the outside sound of the fans and all of the outside noise of the people and so on. And so we got a recording with the actual direct recording of the lapel mic of the lapel mic of Bishop Webster, and he did say each of the words of the form of the consecration correctly and validly. And then, of course, also those who were familiar with St. Thomas Aquinas recognize that what is the rule of the Church about the validity of the sacrament. When a minister, a priest celebrating Mass, or a priest doing a baptism, or doing the consecration of a bishop, or the ordination of a priest, or administering any sacrament, when they're saying the words of the sacrament, if any ordinary man can tell they were saying those words, they were saying the words that are in that book, and they were pronouncing the words in that book to make a consecration happen, or make an ordination happen, or make Christ present upon the altar, and any ordinary man can tell that these are the words he was striving to say, and therefore the sacraments are valid. However, he did say all the words correctly anyway, but in the recording it doesn't come out perfectly. And then because one word appeared to be not perfectly said, when we listened to the recording before it was perfectly cleaned up, one word didn't appear to be perfectly said. So Bishop Webster said, well, just go ahead and do the matter and form all over again, which we did. We went back in the chapel the next morning and did the matter and form all over again, because one word may have been slightly mispronounced. It turned out that it wasn't. as we cleaned up the consecration audio. However, to make sure that there was no possibility of any room for any doubt, this was done. And then it was not necessary to do so. And then, of course, what happens? There's going to be a continual attack and assault, and it will never cease. And if they run out with this one, they'll come up with another one. And there are many souls looking for whatever evil they can find, and whatever question they can find, and whatever doubt that they can find, because they are not looking for the things of Christ, not looking for the truth. Now, what is to be had? One possible reaction is a normal reaction, which is to become angry and to become violent. But this is not the reaction of St. Stephen. It is not the reaction.
All right, you can just go to the next slide.
So, but what's real is real, and what's not's real.
Well, what I wanted to...
So we heard it. What was
It was
real?
mispronounced and was repeated.
Well, he said they cleaned it up, but they didn't post that. Like they didn't.
Well, that's the point. They have a lapel mic audio, supposedly, that has not been released to my knowledge. And if that is what would clear this up, they have an obligation to do it.
Don't let it out.
And why didn't they videotape the second one?
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly what I thought.
But what I really want people to focus on is how he characterized what we saw a few moments ago. Maybe a word was not pronounced correctly. Maybe something wasn't, quite exact.
And he said one word. It was multiple words.
But we just know it's got to be exactly a certain way, or it's
And
not
then,
real.
how does he characterize those who call it into question? We're evil.
Bunch of lame
We don't have the Spirit of Christ. We're against Christ because we dare to question what we hear with our own ears as being a problem.
He even admitted that it sounded
The whole reason why
But-
Christ made matter and form was to fulfill our questions as man.
Yes, we have
He
external
knows that we're
signs,
going
right?
to have that we need to have those
Yes.
to know what's happening, and that's why he made it for us.
But do you notice what he did, though, is he was explicit in that first consecration, this is his assessment, was completely valid.
Yeah.
correct.
Why do it a second time?
Well, aside from that, why would you accept his view of what happened the second time when his view of what happened the first time is already screwed up?
Yeah.
That's not a reliable witness.
He could have just apologized and said, "Yeah, there was a mistake made. We're sorry."
If he did that, I would be
That
elated.
shows humility, or just whatever. But
Yeah, because right now we're all thinking he's not a very truthful person.
right.
And the reason he made the second one was because he said that the next morning they made the second one, and then they cleared up the first video, and they realized that it was perfectly valid the first time.
What a lame.
But it wasn't until
my
the
gosh, you can't-
couple days later that they cleared up the first video.
Are
and
you
said-
seeing the pattern and the problem here? Is everyone seeing the pattern and the problem? It happened again the next day. Okay, where's the proof? Where's the video? Where's the audio from that first day?
Now, where are the facts?
said there was
Where are
a-
the facts?
Lapel mic that they
But you never hear it.
right.
And let's also put in another factor of sacraments is that except for confession, sacraments are public things. We, as the laity, and even as part of the church, that's why you have baptismal certificates. That's why you have marriage certificates. You have witnesses for baptism. You have godparents. You have witnesses in marriage. These are public ceremonies that are not in secret. You have to prove their validity. There has to be witnesses. So even if the second one was done, there were probably witnesses there, but
Well, they
can you
claim
trust them?
that there were 10 witnesses at that second event.
Yeah.
Who? No names were dropped. There's no way that I can go and say, "Hey, did you see this actually happen?" I mean, I can't interview anybody. I can't double check anything.
No video.
All we have is his word.
Or the words of the people that are part of his congregation, which really
didn't see it.
it should have been invited an invitation to the public.
And there's an additional problem here is that, I mean, all of us know to one degree or another Father Pfeiffer. I mean, I've known him since the 90s. You've known him forever, Mike. I mean, I like him. I mean, it would be incredible to have a traditional Catholic bishop 20 minutes from my house. That would just be, that would be heaven, right?
Yeah.
But when it comes to this issue of the sacraments, you have to be precise. You have to do it correctly, because if he is not a bishop, there are no priests coming from Boston. There is no confirmations. There are no holy oils. The people who go to the priests consecrated by Bishop Pfeiffer, if he is not a bishop, they're not priests. If you go to confession to them, you're not going to confession.
Yeah.
There's no sins forgiven.
Yeah.
If they baptize your child, the
Well,
priest
No, it would be.
it would be valid because anybody
yeah,
can
yeah.
baptize.
Anyone can baptize, yeah.
You know, but it's a serious thing. Now, the church has always built, she has built in fail-safes, safety nets with these types of things, so that we would never have to deal with this 100 years ago, 50 years ago. The reason for that is because the church always insists that there be a minimum of 2 bishops, ideally 3 or more. Usually it's 3, but the minimum is 2. 2 bishops doing the consecration. You've got your principal consecrator and your co-consecrators. And what happens is, when they do the consecration form, you've got 3 bishops from 3 different lines. They're all putting their hands on this guy. They're all saying those words together. If one bishop falls asleep, if he's goofy, if he's got a problem in his line, it doesn't matter, because it is, I mean, you want to talk about moral certitude. That's about morally certain as you can get. But when it comes to these one-off bishops, Bishop Webster, etc., who are doing these consecrations, literally everything rests on his shoulders. He has to do everything correctly. Otherwise, it simply doesn't happen.
I didn't know that about the 2 or the 3.
Yes.
That's a huge
Always
red,
insisted
that's another
on.
red flag.
That's why Lefebvre
From the
had,
earliest church, from the
Pastor
earliest days of the
Meyer,
church.
when he consecrated the 4 bishops, he got a second bishop with him.
Okay.
And even with
Yeah, Bishop
Williamson-
Castro de Meyer.
Williamson always has either Bishop Four or Thomas Aquinas or somebody else with him whenever he does any consecration.
Yeah, most of the state of the contest, they have at least 2.
And the background, and I don't want to steal any thunder, so if I'm going someplace that you're going to go, just stop me, please. But some of the background on why there's even more question, there were already red flags. He was seeking to become a bishop. He had already gone to somebody else and couldn't prove that they were a bishop, you know, so I don't think there could have been 2 other bishops that would have been able to do anything like that for him.
Yeah.
And now that this has happened, the floodgates have been opened, and now they've got priests that they're sending to, I think, Kansas and all these other places. They're just distributing them everywhere, you know?
And that's really one of the reasons for this presentation. I mean, this is not something that I enjoy doing, but people need to know why there's a problem, not just that there's a problem. They need to understand why. Yes, sir.
He also consecrated, I heard from one of the seminarians there that he consecrated a bishop across seas.
Pfeiffer?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's, well, here again, this noxious line continues to grow, doesn't it?
And correct me if I'm wrong, Father Poisson was ordained by a Novus Ordo bishop, and he's not been conditionally.
Yes, he was.
Yes, he was.
Oh, by Pfeiffer.
By Ambrose.
Oh, Ambrose. Oh,
Oh,
nice.
well,
Oh boy, that makes me.
That
feel
helps
good.
things, doesn't it?
Now, there's even
That's a whole different ball
Yeah,
of
that's
wax.
a whole different.
there's even
nightmare.
some questions on Bishop Webster.
Well, we're going to get into that here
Oh, okay.
next.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
All right, so all of the stuff that we've talked about. Welcome to the Spaghetti Bowl, by the way. This is the Spaghetti Bowl. Come take a look at the Spaghetti Bowl.
Wow.
Let's say, for the sake of argument, that Father Pfeiffer is absolutely correct. That, yes, he said all the words correctly, or the next day they did it and everything was kosher. He's a bishop. Is he really? When it comes to the lineage of priests and so forth, the lineage matters. Okay? So, I'm going to try to walk people through. I may actually have Dominic come up and explain certain things. But Archbishop Thuc, he was the Archbishop of
Vietnam?
He was the first. He was
yes.
the first. Yeah,
I don't remember the name of the city.
Vietnam, but his brother was the president of Vietnam that the CIA assassinated.
Yes. And as a result of that assassination and the revolution in Vietnam, he had to leave Vietnam. He did not have a diocese because Paul VI wouldn't give him one. So he wandered around a bit. valid bishop. He consecrates Gerard de Laurier. Now, Gerard de Laurier was a papal theologian. He actually helped put together the document that Pius XII used for defining the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary. He taught at the Angelicum. He was a real, true, honest-to-goodness theologian. Very intelligent man. He, in turn, consecrated Robert McKenna. So the fact that de Laurier was so well versed in Catholic theology, I have no problem with the validity of this line. But the thing with the Thuc line is the further afield you get from Thuc, typically the murkier it gets. Right? And I'll explain that here in a minute. So Bishop Thuc, back in the late 60s, early 70s, consecrated this guy, Clemente Dominique, I can't pronounce his last name. Dominguez. Okay.
That is Pope Gregory the 17th.
Anybody hear about Pope Gregory the 17th?
He's the Spanish.
Yeah, the Palmarian.
Palmarians.
He was a Palmarian. He had a vision that our Lord placed the papal tiara on his head, and at the death of Paul VI, he decided that he was the Pope. And they, a priest tricked Thuc into going up there because there were some alleged Marian apparitions in Spain and all that, and this priest told Thuc that Our Lady wanted a special favor. She wanted him to ordain these men and consecrate them for the continuation of the church. And Thuc, this is after Vatican II, so much confusion, so he went ahead and he ordained them, consecrated him. Then he decided that he was the Pope, so they started their own church.
Now, Thuc was not involved in that side of things.
Yes.
He was tricked into consecrating these men. So, okay, bad judgment.
And he did consecrate and ordain a lot of people.
Allegedly.
During the crisis.
Yeah.
But I think most of them are okay. But there are some with the
first generation, second generation will be okay.
Yeah.
But as we see with this fella here, Clemente Dominguez, not only did he just become a bishop, and apparently Pope Gregory the 17th, he consecrates all sorts of people bishops. In fact, I think they've got more bishops in Palmar de Troya, where he was, than they do priests. One of the points of Clemente is in 1983 he shortened the Mass. So they maintained the traditional Latin Mass all through the 70s. 1983, he says, we're going to shorten it. He shortened it down to 5 minutes. Huh? He shortened the Mass. The Palmarian Mass is 5 minutes long.
They do.
He kicked everything out that was not essential, and this is what they do. And go ahead.
They do 8 of them a day, and they're basically, and they built a giant cathedral with money they pretty much stole from the congregants. They built a giant cathedral there, and they're just churning out masses and priests, and well, pretty much bishops, because they ordain them a priest, and usually the next day they consecrate them a bishop. So they have more, they're a mess. But yeah.
But my point in bringing up what he did to the Mass, this is not a man. First of all, this guy, Clemente, never went to seminary. Not a day of theological training in his life. He has no clue what's going on. When it comes to the Mass, when he shortens it, that kind of gives you an idea of the respect that he has for the sacraments.
Why did Thuc consecrate him a priest?
Because he was tricked into it.
Wow.
He was tricked into it because they were in the late 60s. They were claiming to have these visions, and one of the priests went up to Thuc, and they're like, Our Lady wants you to do her a favor. He talks to Clemente, and Clemente is telling him these visions, and it sounds great because it's all opposed to Vatican II and about the survival of the church. So, it sounds good. And so he agreed to do that. But this fella is involved. And we'll go through this here in a moment. So Clemente is involved. Then you get down here with Jean Labouré.
Yeah.
Jean Labouré he was a homosexual. And actually so was Clemente, by the way.
Nobody knows where he was.
I mean, this is truly a spaghetti bowl. But let's look at this. So Jean Labouré was ordained a priest by who knows? Nobody knows. There's no record of him ever having been ordained a priest. I don't know if you can see that or not. He was consecrated a bishop in 1966 by a bishop from the Holy Celtic Church. Now here again, you're getting into these schismatic groups, these schismatic organizations, especially when you get to the Old Catholic Church. They ordain women. They do all sorts of funny things with their sacraments. Strange things. It really, there's no, I have no idea about this consecration. I have no idea what happened. Nobody knows what happened. Nobody knows really the history of the bishop from the Holy Celtic Church that consecrated Jean Labouré a bishop. All right, big fat red flag. Then you get, he was consecrated again, redo, right? 1968, so 3 years later by somebody from the Old Catholic Church. Now the Old Catholic Church, they actually started off in the 18th century in Utrecht.
It actually,
Where's it?
they started before that, but they got a giant boost after Vatican I because there were a lot of people that left the church after Vatican I because the papal infallibility issue, it was a huge controversy.
Right.
So they got a boosting in numbers then, but they started out actually at the Protestant Revolution. So they've been around for a while, but they kind of jumped in popularity in the late 1800s.
That's a good point. So he gets consecrated in 1968 by an old Catholic guy. Still has doubts about his orders. Then he gets consecrated again in 1977, a good 10 years later, by Clemente. Now notice the dates. 1977 was that final consecration from Clemente. He gets consecrated again in 1968 with the Old Catholic Church. Now follow this arrow. He consecrates or ordains a priest, Terracin, in 1974. So if he had doubts about his orders from 1968, and between 1968 and 1967, he comes down here and ordains a priest, Terracin. Terracin was ordained while this guy apparently wasn't even sure of the validity of his orders. I'm telling you, it's a spaghetti bowl. You guys can come up closer if you want a closer look. I can even send this out after you. All right, so Terracin was consecrated a bishop by, again, Clemente.
It might be two strikes.
I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? I mean, this is serious stuff.
Allegedly, he was conditionally consecrated by Thuc, but there's no record of that. It's an assertion.
And it's easy to assert things when whoever you're asserting about can't speak for themselves.
Yeah.
All right, so this is Terracin now. So now, by the way, when it comes to raising somebody to the episcopacy, the requirement is you have to be a valid priest. You have to be a priest first because they're saying, raise this thy priest to the summit of the ministry. Is all of this making sense so far? Anybody lost? Okay. All right. You're not lost looking at this?
It's a beautiful chart.
I can't take credit for this. This comes from the recusant.
Oh,
but however, I did verify, and it's quite accurate as far as we can tell. All right, so Terracin gets consecrated a bishop by Clemente. Crazy Clemente. And then he turns around, he consecrates this guy, Hennebury, who was consecrated or ordained a priest by Carmona. Carmona would be a valid bishop because he was consecrated by Thuc. All right, so you have now a valid priest, but then this priest gets consecrated a bishop by Terracin. Is he bishop? I don't know. You tell me. Then Hennebury ordains Neil Webster a priest. So we have, I think, what I would safely say would be a doubtful bishop ordaining Neil Webster a priest. I knew Neil Webster, by the way, before he even got ordained. All right, I actually met him. Nice guy. I mean, I don't have any problem with him. I mean, I think he's very pious, very genuine, and I'm not pointing fingers at him. I'm just saying this is the reality of the situation. So he gets ordained a priest, I mean, through all this, and then he gets ordained a bishop by Francis Slupski. I think most people here are familiar with Slupski. Okay, so and I'll let Dominic come in here and give some more commentary in a moment. So Thuc, Delorier, McKenna, so far no problem. Slupski, so far no problem. All right, Slupski ordains Neil Webster a bishop. Well, if he's not a priest, he ain't no bishop. If he ain't no bishop, neither is Pfeiffer. Even if everything before that we talked about was kosher. And that's just reality.
And you don't think Slupski checked the background on Webster of his ordination as a priest beforehand?
We'll talk about this in a moment.
But you know,
We'll talk
who knows?
because Slupski, unfortunately, was pretty fast and loose with his
He was kind
ordinations
of like
and
an
consecration.
American Archbishop Thuc. Like when you hear people say, "Oh, I have a problem with Archbishop Thuc," it's like
It's a spectrum. It's a rainbow. Like,
he was ordaining and consecrating people for like 20 years or more. It was only during the later part that it kind of got other than the Clemente, but in his later years, people have problems because
Yeah, like 1984 or
they
whatever.
say he was just too old, and I think that's what they're saying about Slupski. Maybe.
Yeah, but
keep going. You know more.
Is that who we used to call Father Frank from St. John's?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was a valid bishop.
Yeah.
I don't doubt it.
Remember Father Frank
I
at
don't
St.
doubt it.
John's?
So like I got
St. John's?
confirmed when he came
He
here
was helping out Father
way
Paul for
back,
a while.
and
Yeah, I don't have a problem
Because
with.
Bishop McKenna was a valid bishop.
ever-
I mean,
Yeah.
Father
Yes.
Lofton accepted
Oh, yes.
I'm
McKenna,
not sure
yeah.
where he's from.
So-
Yeah.
But, I think he's from Poland.
All
I
right,
think.
Dominic, did
Polish.
you want him to give some more commentary on anything up here?
I mean, I think you covered pretty much everything. I mean, with the Thuc thing, Carmona and Laurier, those are very certain until they started. You had people in their lineage mixing up with other schismatic groups, and it makes a spaghetti bowl that you can't verify. So when people say Thuc line, you kind of have to go through. I mean, you have, if somebody was ordained a priest by Rob McKenna, he's a real priest. But like once you get further down the line, you have the spaghetti bowl. It's hard to verify things, and then there's a lot of people that have claimed lineage from Bishop Thuc, but there's no record, no witnesses, no nothing. They do it to verify themselves. But yeah, that's kind of a mess. So I think we covered pretty much everything.
Honestly, taking part in this would be like, why would you drink dirty water when you can drink clean water?
Right.
I mean, that's literally what we're dealing with here. So, in terms of Bishop Slupski, so any questions on this so far? And am I losing anybody? You guys following? Okay. Next slide. So, this is Bishop Petko. I knew Bishop Petko. He left the Fraternity of St. Peter in the late 90s. He was conditionally ordained several times by different people because he was from the Fraternity of St. Peter. He had very severe doubts about his orders. Nice guy. I considered him a friend. He was consecrated by Bishop Slupski in 2011. And this kind of goes to your question, and I think Brian should pay attention. So this is, did you ever meet Bishop Petko?
I didn't.
Okay.
He was a priest that came to St. Paul's in Evansville.
Okay. So he passed away in 2018. He had heart issues and so forth. We knew the family that took him in. Great people. In fact, some of them have been here. Some of them have been to the dances and so forth. So something that I learned quite recently is when he was consecrated by Bishop Slupski, the event was videoed. There's a videotape of it, and I'm actually still waiting on the video to come to me. At this consecration, Slupski never laid his hands on Petko. Didn't happen. The family sent the video to Bishop Peverunis, a number of priests. They all came back invalid. Didn't happen. So the reason I bring this up with regard to Slupski, and I'm not trying to impugn him, I mean, he's dead, God rest his soul, but I'm just saying, if you can't get it right once, does anybody here have any idea what happened when he consecrated Webster? Was that videoed? Anybody see? I mean, he goofed up. The only way we knew about this was they reviewed a video from 2011, and then they realized, hey, this guy was not a bishop. And the friend of mine who was involved in this, he's upset because now he's got to get his kids confirmed. He's got to go through and redo all of that. And it's not his fault. I'm not blaming him. I'm not blaming any of these people. But, you don't put... there's no bishop. What I'm saying is that that's the quality control that we're dealing with when it comes to Bishop Slupski. I have very low expectations when it comes to the other consecrations that he did. Now I expect to see video proof that he did it correctly. So, again, not to besmirch his good name or anything like that, but this is reality. This really happened. And Slupski was the one who consecrated Webster, and Webster consecrated Pfeiffer. So even if we give Pfeiffer all of the matter, form, and intention bit, this whole issue, I'm not touching it with a 10-foot pole.
There's so many weak links.
So many
in the
weak
whole
links.
Thing that pull apart, and it's a mess.
And here's the thing, is that it is incumbent on him, Bishop Pfeiffer, to fix these, or to explain them in such a way that all reasonable doubt is taken away. He can't just give a talk about, oh, we cleaned up the audio and every word was fine, but we're not going to let you hear the audio. That's absurd. Would you let someone like this operate on your kid if we're dealing with doctors as opposed to bishops and priests? Hell no. Why would you do it when it comes to souls? And this is something that any parent who doesn't do their homework with regard to these illegal doctors, that's on you. Yes, sir.
So what's the fruits of all of this?
The fruits of Boston?
Yeah.
Contention. I would say that's the biggest fruit of Boston, Kentucky. Everybody who goes down there leaves. It's a pattern. They don't show it on video anymore, but you see the videos as the priests they're processing in for Mass, and you can see the congregation on Sundays.
I watched one from Sunday. They had 11 people there.
Yeah, and now that in and of itself doesn't mean anything. Right. Obviously, because we need to be objective about this. It means nothing.
Right.
But what does mean something is when everybody who does go down there at some point or another leaves.
Well, and there's other things related to Boston that have been going on for years that we're not going to get into. It's a totally separate issue, but you talk about we're seeing smoke from a fire, or you see smoke, and you're like, there's 5 smokestacks going on.
Right.
And they're all completely separate, but we're not going to get into the other ones.
Exactly.
And it's a lot.
And when it comes to fruits, I'm not going to go, I don't want to get into hearsay and rumors and gossip and all of that kind of stuff, but I know things firsthand that are not good, and so many other people who have been down there have known things firsthand that are not good. And but the other issue with all of this is nobody has a problem with Williamson's consecrations. Even the Sedevacantists, who don't like Bishop Williamson, who don't like the resistance, etc. Nobody raises a stink about Bishop Williamson's consecrations. Why? Because he does things correctly. Because he does things correctly, they're beyond question. So, but when you have this going on, nobody accepts Bishop Pfeiffer as a bishop.
And you also have the fact of, again, quick story is, I've met and talked to Father Pfeiffer many times over the years because he's in Kentucky. I went to a retreat up in Connecticut long ago, and he was there. He gave one of the best sermons I've ever heard in my life.
Tremendous sermons.
When he was with Pius X, he was great because there were rules, there was structure, and if you know him, he's a very go get him, take charge type of guy. And I think once, so he was kicked out of Pius X along with Bishop Williamson and a whole bunch of other people. But that was more political. When Fillet took over, that was back in
2012, I think, was that whole
big resistance meeting down there.
Right.
At that time, Bishop Williams was there, and a lot of priests were there.
Right.
Down there,
And it's a shame they couldn't have worked that out.
Well, they were all on the same page, but then one of the ancillary things we can talk about, which has nothing to do with hearsay, but you have Father Pfeiffer couldn't get along with Bishop Williamson.
Yeah,
why couldn't he get Bishop Williamson to consecrate him a bishop?
Yeah, that's
And they had they were butting heads.
Really?
And then Father Pfeiffer went out on his own, went back to Bardstown, why doesn't he get along with Bishop Williamson? He does. Father Voigt, who was here for about a year, he went down there to help out Father Pfeiffer. He was there for like a couple of years, and then he was trying to help them build the seminary, and then he left and said, I'm never stepping foot anywhere close to, he has all these stories, which gets into, that's his story, but it just goes on and on. The Father Pfeiffer just wants to be in charge, and it's not good.
To answer your question, bad fruits. And it's
chaos.
Unfortunate. Yes, sir.
Would Bishop Petko not realize that he didn't put his hands on him?
I don't know. I can't.
I think their heads are supposed to be down.
Yeah, they have their heads like this.
Yeah, their heads are down, and I don't know what was going through Bishop Petko's mind. I mean,
But still, you're supposed to lay your hands on the head, so yeah, you should know.
Sometimes they just lay it right over there.
Maybe he just thought like.
It may not lay
well,
over there.
actually, Pius XII in that document on the ordination of priests that I mentioned, he explicitly stated in there that he wants it on the head, as opposed to a moral presentation where you lay it above. He wants them to touch it to remove all doubt.
There was a controversy one year. Archbishop Lefebvre had a broken hand one year, and he did ordinations, and he extended the one hand. I think Father Sakata was in that class.
Okay.
Because there were people later who said, "Oh, you're not a priest because he only extended the one hand." It was ridiculous.
That's
that's
absurd.
Because he did extend the one hand and touch the head of the ordinands. But anyway.
No, great conversation. So, any questions so far? Does anyone need to take a break because we've got more? If you can handle it. If you can handle it. If you can't handle it, then we can pause and maybe pick this up next time. I mean, it's up to you guys. What do you want to do?
I think we should try to finish it. But
All right.
That's my opinion. I don't know.
You got here?
This is really well done.
Did you say you're
I didn't know
gonna
that
send
about
this
Petko.
I can send this out, and Foles is recording this.
Wonderful.
So we got the recording and then the presentation here, the slides.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know.
Well, let's go to the next one there. So is Ernest leaving?
Yes.
Ernest, God bless you, sir. Is he gone?
I thought he did. I thought he walked in.
Okay.
Oh, really?
All right. So you're literally dealing with a minefield when you go down to Boston. See you later, Ernest. God bless you. Would you honestly, if you're dealing with, let's say you're in Ukraine right now, you're in no man's land, would you take your child on a stroll, an unnecessary stroll, across a frickin' minefield? No. Would you do it without need? No. So, we've got all these red flags, not just with regard to the form, which we hear with our own ears. I'd love to get that lapel recording. I don't know if that's ever going to happen.
I don't even see a lapel mic on him in any of the photos.
Well, I mean, let's give him the benefit of the doubt, right? Let's give him the benefit of the doubt in that regard. All we have is Father Pfeiffer's word that it was done the next day. We have a claim that there was 10 witnesses. I don't know any of those witnesses. There's nobody that I can talk to say, hey, what really happened here? We know Father Pfeiffer's assessment of what happened that first time is delusional. I'm not trusting his assessment of what happened the second time or the third time or whatever else happens down the road. So yeah, I mean, these red flags, and then you take all of that away, and then you just look at the lineage. No. Yes, sir.
I don't want to. Well, it's. I can't shake this thought, so I just want to share it and get some feedback from the group. You mentioned the validity of the lineage, and I understand that causes enough doubt for the 10%. But you mentioned a negative assumption, or what'd you call it?
A negative doubt.
A negative doubt. So if they said they did it the next day, everything's
good
a
point.
negative doubt.
That's a very good point.
However, so I don't. That's just. I want to add that. I do see that.
That's an excellent point. So when it comes to negative doubts, what you're really worried about is unfounded negative doubts. Okay. So you don't hear something, you don't see something without a reason to express a doubt, then you've got no business doubting. But what we have in this case is, in the case of Slupski consecrating Petko, as a for instance, he didn't even lay his hands on him. So This now introduces a positive doubt into that situation, which tells me that he is incompetent. So I can extrapolate from that and say that, okay, he is incompetent in this instance.
Correct.
I have no idea what happened with these other instances. And just for the sake...
To the 10%.
Right. Just for the sake of safety, I'm avoiding it. But no, that's a very good point about the negative doubt, because that would be a negative doubt.
If they said they did it the next
But
day.
it's not an unfounded one, because there are specific reasons that you can point to say, that's a problem.
The fact they did it the next day means they admit to messing
Right.
it up the first day, and then they covered the tracks.
And we don't want to confuse a lack of moral certitude with a negative doubt. All right, with that spaghetti bowl that we looked at, there's a lot of lack of moral certitude. That's not necessarily the same as a negative doubt.
And that's what makes the boxes red.
Correct. Correct. Somebody ever had their hand up over here? No? Okay. All right, so let's move on to the next one.
I mean, you could argue that the second day procedure ceremony is a positive doubt because it's supposed to be public, and if you don't have proof, and you don't have one bishop,
That's right.
and
Well-
you have 10 witnesses that can't be trusted who said that the first time was good, to me, positive doubts are based on facts. That's a ton of lack of facts.
Yeah.
That's I'm not the church, but that's my opinion.
Fortunately, the Pfeifferians bring that up with a series of objections. They actually put out a paper. I can send it out if people are interested. I mean, it's kind of juvenile, actually, the paper, the Pfeifferians. It was written by a fellow, I don't remember his name, but I think he was a seminarian down there at one point. He's married now. He apparently left. I don't know why. So these are a series of objections that are raised and the subsequent answers that Boston gives. So there's several others. They deal mainly with the Thuc line. I'm not really going to get into that because, I mean, to me that's neither here nor there. Let's just give them that. So the first objection is the video of the consecration by Bishop Webster appears to show repetitions, additions, and mispronunciations in the 16-word essential form, making the consecration either invalid or at least doubtfully valid. That's the first objection. So let's go to the next slide. So this is their response. Let's.
Belly, that's a word salad.
What they do is they throw a bunch of canon law quotes at you. So the first one is, in cases in which the obligations contracted from sacred ordination are impugned or disputed, or the validity of sacred ordination itself is impugned, a libellous complaint document must be sent to the sacred congregation for the discipline of sacraments. Or if the ordination is impugned due to substantial defect of sacred rite, to the sacred congregation for the holy office. And the sacred congregation decides whether the case will be treated in the judicial order or heard as a disciplinary case.
Well, that ain't gonna happen.
The freaking hospital's gone!
Right, that's right.
That's irrelevant. That's just totally.
The hospital is gone.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, zombie, can you help me out here? I mean, and then what I love about this, they throw all these quotes from canon law. How many codes of canon law did you break to get that mitre?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
No papal mandate, no authorization, no permission, no co-consecrators. I mean, I went through the code of canon law. There's like 16 different codes that he violated to get where he's at. But when I raise my finger and say, excuse me, shut up, sit down. You've got no right to question this. And that's the essence of what is here with this list of quotes from the code of canon law.
A lot of them are taken out of context too.
Yeah, and they're probably.
They are, absolutely, because I looked these up, especially the ones with regard to matrimony and so forth, and there's one here with an ellipsis.
Taken out of context.
Yeah, no, they are. Some of these are taken out of
It's a
context.
very Protestant approach.
And it's also, he forgets the main rule is that the clerics have to prove their own validity. It's their responsibility to prove it to the laity. And since we don't have a church structure, that process is gone. So
And
he has to do it himself.
what I don't see listed here is what the Code of Canon Law says about wandering bishops,
Yeah.
right? Bishops that are consecrated without authorization, bishops that are consecrated without a papal mandate. None of that's here.
Yeah, anything that will give you ground. Yeah.
You know, are we going to follow canon law?
How about
We're not.
opening up your own seminaries?
Right.
You know,
By
all
whose
that.
authority?
Right.
So, all right. So next slide. All right. So, yeah, I think that's right. So Father Cicada, Mario Dirksen's treatise on the validity of the Thuc consecrations. All right, they're valid, but whatever. And what they're saying here is that thoroughly prove that no Catholic has the right to doubt any ordination that is a notorious fact. Now, a notorious fact is basically something that is public. All right? And that is true to a point. I don't have a right to doubt an ordination that follows a procedure, that follows canon law, that follows the rules. But when you break every rule in the book to get where you're at, you no longer have the cover of law. You no longer have that protection that you're now appealing to. Beyond that, an ordination that is a notorious fact is one thing, but an ordination that's a notorious fact with a video that has substantial positive doubt that is also a notorious fact is a completely different topic. What he's saying here is shut up, pay, pray, and obey. He's not addressing the core problem.
Yeah,
basically, shut you down.
The notorious fact presumes that it was valid, that it was done properly.
Yes.
So that's a,
I mean, the rest of it is pretty much of the same vein. You know, these canons clearly determine the procedure of the Catholic Church, which you ignored right along the whole way, that must take place when anyone attempts to raise a doubt concerning the validity of ordination consecration. Here again, you follow canon law, I'm going to do my own thing.
So you have a prelate basically that wants, for whatever reason, this position, he's willing to get it no matter what. So
it certainly appears that way.
And I would like to point out, he keeps quoting, it's therefore not the duty or right of the laity.
Correct.
It's like, well, there's plenty of no sort of bishops that are questioning it that aren't the laity.
Well, there's plenty of traditional priests.
Right.
Bishop Dolan.
So it's not just the laity.
No.
And it's not,
And when it comes to, we talked earlier about jurisdiction and so forth, all right? You fathers have more authority than Bishop Pfeiffer. God-given authority. Because Bishop Pfeiffer has zero authority. He has zero jurisdiction. He can tell his altar boys what to do. That's the extent of his authority. You fathers have more authority than Bishop Pfeiffer. And you also have the duty to protect your children, to make sure that they are getting what they need spiritually. So this is hogwash.
So is that because he doesn't have permission from the diocese? Or
Is what because he doesn't have permission from the diocese?
As far as his authority.
Okay, so let's break this down briefly because that's actually a very good point. In the ordinary circumstance, when you have a running hospital system, all right, and the doctor is appointed by the appropriate authorities, he has authority in his sphere, all right? If you have a doctor who's in charge of dealing with heart surgeries and so forth, he makes the rules. He can tell the nurse, you do this, you do that, I don't want this, I do want this. Bring that light over here and make it brighter. He can dictate. He's the boss. But you get a guy who is not authorized, who has no authority, he has no real binding jurisdiction. When a bishop or a priest in the regular hospital system, or the doctor in this case, when he is appointed to his post, he has real authority from God. This is part of that binding and loosing thing, right? Mm-hmm. A bishop in his diocese who has real authority from the Roman pontiff, he can dispense you from Sunday obligation. He can dispense you from, he can make laws and he can break laws. Or not break them, but rather change them. And he is the boss in that diocese. He has real, and if you disobey those without good cause, it can be mortally sinful.
Which is how Lefebvre got his seminary started, because he had permission.
Yeah, he got permission. He went through that whole process, right?
Yes.
But traditional priests don't have jurisdiction. No jurisdiction. Father Webster has no jurisdiction, and he will be the first to tell you that. Bishop Fillet has no jurisdiction. Father David, whatever his name is, Pagliariani, he's got no jurisdiction. Now, because he's got an organization, he can run the organization, that's fine. Mm-hmm. But when I hear of SSPX priests giving dispensations for meat on Fridays, no, you've got no right to do. You have no authority to do that, because that is entirely a juridical call. A parish priest can do that because he's got authority from his bishop, who in turn gets his authority from the Pope. But a wandering priest, if you will, doesn't. Is all of that making sense?
Yes.
Does that answer your question? Okay. All right, so let's go to the next slide. So this is the second objection. Even if normally the notorious canonical fact of consecration should be accepted by all Catholics, does this not apply in this case, or this does not apply in this case, since Bishop Webster bungled the 16-word essential form, making the consecration at least doubtful. All right, let's go to the next slide. So this is from their, all right, the form cannot be considered even doubtfully valid unless the one contesting can actually demonstrate that the sense of the essential words were mutated in such a way as to constitute a substantial change in meaning.
Which they were.
Is there anyone here who disputes the conclusions of what we looked at with regard to the video? Okay.
You're preaching to the choir.
So he says, St. Thomas teaches in the Summa that it is the meaning of the words which confect the sacrament and not the words themselves. That's absolutely true. Hence, a sacramental form can be had in any language, not just Aramaic, spoken in Christ, so long as the substantial meaning is the same. Also, the words can be added or subtracted so long as the meaning is substantially the same. For example, the Latin Church says, I baptize thee, whereas the Greek Church says, may the servant of God be baptized. Both rights are... No, we don't have... That's not where the dispute is.
Nope. And they say that he said ministry. Bishop Webster's words. They say that he didn't say mystery.
Right. No, I mean, what did you hear?
I heard ministry.
Ministry or mystery?
Mystery.
I mean, anybody else hear ministry? I sure didn't. I used headphones.
It was repeated twice.
Yeah, because he said it twice.
He said
whatever the
twice.
word was, he said it
it's
twice.
Pretty clear that there was no.
We can always go back and listen to it again. But that's what it sounded like to me.
I know a lot of times, if somebody tells you beforehand when you listen to something,
correct,
that's what you'll hear.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody on the other side, they tell you beforehand that somebody hadn't heard, then that's the way they'll hear it.
But here's the thing:
it's hard to. When something is muffled like that was muffled.
The fact that he was struggling with that last clause, I mean, is
well, the thing is too. How many of us were told, that he said mystery before we watched the video? Because ordinary, you could say that it was.
Because you have mystery and ministry. There's an extra syllable in there, so it should be able to. You should be able to hear that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But anyway,
and everybody else.
And the fact that he said it twice.
Yeah, everybody else who's listened to that video has come away with mystery.
And they even thought they mispronounced it the first day, or
One wonders which of these words Bishop Pfeiffer thinks was spoken amiss. All right, so anyway, this paragraph is irrelevant to what we're talking about. It says, application to ceremony of July 29th, 2020, found on YouTube channel. Top line is the 16th word from the Pontificale Romanum, defined by Pius XII as the essential form. The second line contains the words pronounced by the 76-year-old Bishop Webster, with the repetitions and miscellaneous sounds removed. Okay, I mean, that's fine. That's fair, right? But when I listen to it, this doesn't match.
And why is he
This
still defending
doesn't
it?
match. Sanam, I heard an N.
Yeah.
All right, they say it's an M. It's basically well, san, sumam, and samam. The root word is different, isn't it?
Right.
No matter how you look at it, even if you give them this, the root word is different.
And I don't even know if he ever said ungen. What is it?
He struggled with it.
Ungenti.
Yeah,
I don't even know. He stopped and started that word 5 times.
But again, this is the heart of the discussion. They say he said X. I say he said Y. Which is right? I don't know.
And why defend this?
How do we figure it out?
Second time.
So it's a 50-50. It's not even a 90-10.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Good night, gents. I gotta go.
All right. See you later, Ray.
Y'all have a good night.
Well, let's power through the rest of this because I know it's getting late. What's the next one? Next slide.
Me too.
All right. So the samam, Bishop Webster, is clearly a slight mispronunciation of sumam. It's a little more than slight because it changes the root word.
Right.
Hey, see you later, Ray.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Ray. Bye.
Which would be easily understood by a native Latin speaker. Just as we native English speakers understand when the Oriental says in English, do you want to eat some Chinese food? Honestly, I don't even know how to respond to that. Even Siri understands that Chinese food means rorare, pour down do. The definitive verb form. All right. So rorare is not really even the question. We're not even dealing with that because it's, and hence has the same meaning. A pre-Vatican II judge would throw out any foolish claim that the form was doubtfully valid due to bungled pronunciation. Greg Taylor of the Recusant claims that there are at least 7 errors in the 16-word form as pronounced by Bishop Webster. Mr. Taylor even takes the sound eek and turns it into a Latin word hic, meaning this. No reasonable man, after looking more closely at the recording of the form, can argue that the sense of the words of Pius XII are not correctly conveyed by Bishop Webster according to the Catholic moral theology, canon law, and common estimation of men. This is kind of the crux of the problem. I have not run into anybody outside of the Pfeiffer bubble that listens to those words and hears them the way Bishop Pfeiffer does. So this whole common man argument, to me, that has no ground. No ground. I mean, you're dealing with clerics, Bishop Dolan, and so many others who have looked at this and said, no, that's a problem. All right. Any questions on this so far? All right, next slide. Objection 3, doesn't repeating the words bring the form into question? No, it doesn't. So their response, I think, is just pretty clever. It says, no, indeed, the answer is no. That's true. Repeating the words doesn't change the meaning. All right, do people miss airplanes in the airports because the ground personnel says this is the last and final board? I mean, that's all cute. But this is really what I wanted to focus on here. So they use as an example a situation with Pope Zachary. And it says, Pope Zachary determined that one who was baptized on account of ignorance by the formula in the name of the fatherland and the daughter and the holy spiritual. All right, we'll get to that in a second here. The Latin is in nomine patria et filia et spiritua sancta. The correct form is in nomine patris et filii et spiritus sancti, right? So the endings change. So where it seems that the corruption changed the signification of the words for the fatherland does not signify the father, but rather the place of birth. However, granted that fatherland absolutely signifies something other than father, yet nevertheless it is part of the corrupted prolation of this formula. I baptize thee in the name of the fatherland, the daughter, etc. It judged to signify father. And so the formula taken as a whole is not changed in signification, and this is exceedingly to be noted in cases of corrupted prolation of words occurring in the other sacraments, whether arising from haste, a stuttering tongue, or some other accident. Okay, so this is the great theologian Cajetan, and he's not incorrect in the sense of the root word, like we talked about earlier, is preserved in this baptismal formula, isn't it? So, okay, we'll give them that, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about where the root word changes. Now, if I brought my child to Father Bitzer for baptism, and whenever this happens, I always watch and I listen and I pay strict attention to what's going on. Trust but verify, right? If Father Bitzer baptized my kid this way, in nomine patria et filia, right? 2 things would happen. Number 1, you're fired. Redo, because you're not competent to do this. Second of all, is I would find another priest who could do it correctly.
Right. Yeah.
I wouldn't run around and insist, yes, it was valid. I wouldn't play games with that.
Yeah.
All right. And I don't think Father Bitzer would expect anything less, right? Next slide. So here Cajetan's explanation of the law of accommodation from St. Thomas most clearly leaves no room for doubt in such a case. Basically, yes, morally certain substantial change in the meaning. But what were we looking at when we listened to that video and we looked at the words printed? It sure seemed to me that there was some substantial changes to the meaning of those words. All right, health is quite different.
Yeah.
Mystery is quite different.
It's not like it was supposed to be mysterium, and he said mysterious.
That would be different.
He said it was a completely different word.
Yeah. I think this is probably the last slide.
Can we
Is
go
there any?
back?
3 more.
Yeah, go back one more.
Well, can we go back to the video once we're done, just so we can all
Sure.
hear it one more time?
Next
Do
slide.
you want to do that now? or
Oh
you
no,
wanna-
it was good. We don't need to.
No, I think that's a good point. With all of this in mind, let's go back.
Just trust me, it was good.
Let's go back and after let's go through this. Then we'll go back to that video. Go ahead and do the next slide. All right. So he kind of does the same thing. Complete in thy priest, summit of the ministry. Bishop Webster's words: complete in thy priest, the summit of the ministry. here thy ministry, and after clothing him with the brightness of all glory, sanctify him to pour down dew of celestial ointment. All right, so this is kind of their reading of what was said in that video. Argumentum ad absurdum. If the above could be considered incomprehensible or doubtfully valid, then all Asian baptisms would be invalid since they can't pronounce the letter L. Chinese baptisms by Father Bruce Wee would go like this. Ego se baptizo in nomine patris, et oui, yeah, and that's cute. I mean, we got to give it to them. That's cute.
Who responded to you with this stuff? I got a feeling
What do you mean?
Was this
This
Bishop
is the
Pfeiffer?
yes. This is a PDF on their website. In hoc signo vinces. And I can send this out. But this is childish.
Childish, yes.
But second of all, it begs the question: did he say ministry or mystery? Did he say sana or was it sumam or sama?
And did he even say the word uni
I didn't.
He did struggle with that one. I know that.
I didn't hear it.
I mean, we'll go back here in a minute and listen to the video again. Give him the. Be fair, right? But it's just begging the question. All right.
And plus, Father Poisson interposed because he saw that there was a.
Yes.
By virtue of his interposing,
Yeah.
he clearly saw a problem with the ceremony.
In the moment. In the moment.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, we'll have an opportunity to see that again here in a moment.
Got one audio.
How many more?
2 more.
All right, let's go to the next one here.
Mm-hmm.
Objection 4: the conditional consecration video should be made.
What year?
Anybody object to that?
Yeah, what did we say here?
Let's go to the next one. So this is their response. This is, again, a quote from canon law. Whenever ordination or consecration is to be repeated of any of the rites supplied, whether absolutely or under condition, this can be done outside the usual times and secretly. Notice it doesn't say must be done secretly. It says it can be done secretly. And then it goes through and it says that, when they were up there with Archbishop Lefebvre, it was normal for them to do conditional ordinations of priests and so, and I get that. But this is the problem, is that Boston put up that video, introduced a positive doubt. It's incumbent upon them to remove the doubt. And the easiest way to do that is to put out the audio or the video or whatever else they have on that second consecration. Why not?
And again, it would be different if the second time was done with 2 bishops and there were other witnesses, but they,
So I think that's it. Any more?
No.
All right, why don't you navigate back to the original video?
So he name dropped the Archbishop Feb because he was ordained by there at the end.
So which video?
So it's the first one where it says the main event.
Okay.
All right, and then go up here and click on from current slide. All right. Oh, you may have to navigate because you go ahead and navigate to it.
And the issue too with Webster, if he's not a priest, even if he were a validly consecrated bishop, he wouldn't be a priest.
Yeah,
Because the bishopric doesn't confer the priesthood. That's the problem.
All right, here's the
That's
video.
one big problem.
Complex. Sacerdotibus, mysterii tui sonum erondamentis totius foris
He said it twice. He said it twice.
Just go back one more time. Where you play? I think it's on the next slide too.
It is on.
Yeah, the next one is a little louder. So let's just go to the next one.
There's no N. I didn't hear a N.
And you can even then clearly hear him say "sono."
Just try to do it.
Yeah, I definitely heard Sonam the last time.
Here comes.
complex. Sacerdotibus mysterii tui sonum erondamentis totius foris Instructum Instructus Sanctifica.
No, he didn't say that word.
Yeah, he did not.
Il sacerdote tuo, sacerdotibus tuus, mysterii tui sonum et ornamentis totius glorificationis instructum et fructus
He didn't say it. He said
He
like the
struggles
second half of
bad.
it, and then he jumped
What was
to
the last word? Did you say sanctificata?
I heard sonum too.
I heard mystery.
I didn't hear it the way they were. We heard that it
Even-
still didn't work.
Even
Could have been in and in.
Could you tell us? Could you tell if he had his hands over in the video? Did anybody?
Yes, so he placed his hands at the beginning of the preface. I did verify that, so that was done.
And it's supposed to be ministry.
Ministry, yes.
So I clearly heard mystery.
Right.
Yeah. There's no
right.
in.
Right. Yeah. There's no in.
Yeah.
No in.
You and
sound.
everybody else except Father Pfeiffer.
He definitely said
That was
mystery.
clearly mystery, not ministry.
But
Also,
I
heard
think
sonum.
with this, we are at least owed the lapel mic if they're not going to give us what happened the second day. Right? And he said in that video that they've got a recording of the lapel mic of the
You
bishop.
don't need a lapel mic with that.
No, well, you do, but Jack's right there because you could say, okay, forget the lapel mic, prove all these other red flags before we even get to your, you know,
No, he's still got those problems.
Bishop Webster. Yeah,
He's still
and
got
then
those
we'll get to
problems.
the lapel mic.
It's honestly a blessing that they did not release any more information on it because, you know, 90% of people don't know about the Slupski issue with the hands.
So
Most
this
people
is
don't-
something
haven't
that
gone
I
through
came
the
across
spaghetti.
recently.
Yeah.
It's not like this is out there on the internet. And I came across this because friends that I have who were involved with Bishop Petko, this really hit their lives.
And they had the video of the.
They have the
Petko.
video.
Wow, that's crazy.
They sent it to Pivarunis and a couple of other priests, and they're like, "Dude,
Wow.
Yeah, that's it.
yeah, that's it."
What I'm saying is it's a blessing that there's so much out here. And it's nice because let's